We begin the new season with the start of the tournament arc. As you all know, Dano High is about to go up against Mishin High, a top 16 team in last year's tournament. They're also one of the few teams that didn't change rosters. Last year's group stages were also held in gaming cafes, but there will be a broadcast this time around. It's the perfect stage to make a name for yourself before entering the pro leagues. Mishin High looked calm and collected with the upcoming match. They marched to the venue with utmost confidence, and they've earned it. It's possible to say that they've got the best teamwork in Group H. Mishin High players move like a single organism, and letting them pick their main heroes will be tough to deal with. Jin Yang naturally suggests just banning their mains. But Chan Heon's strategy involves letting the enemy pick their mains. Mishin has the best teamwork, but they don't have any standout superstars. Utilizing psychological warfare, they can crush their confidence from the first round. They'll be game over after the first few minutes. The day came and Dano High did just that. They banned the S-class picks to let Mishin select their comfort picks. Their healer is getting a funny feeling, as if they're being led on right from the start. Mishin High respects Dano High's reputation in the few friendly matches they've played. So, they're going with a classic 1 tank, 1 healer, and 2 DPS team comp. Mishin have faced opponents that tried to counter their bread and butter, but they've always come up on top. The captain was fixated on just taking out Spiro, and the rest will be easy pickings.
Are you sure about that?
Dano also picked their signature heroes for their first tournament match. The game plan is to not let the enemy breathe with relentless crushing attacks. It's been a while since Jiho has been permitted to use his little Spiro, so he'll undoubtedly take this opportunity to go wild. Even Captain Ari would not be able to stop this young man from going full throttle. Jiho's already wreaking havoc, getting the first strike on the tank. He looks like he's in good shape with how crisp his dive looks. For a normal player, this first move would be a death wish. First, it was the unusual bans, and now it's the diving support. You would think that Dano High was trolling. Mishin High is used to just doing their part, but Dano High's DPS duo will make that hard. Chaewon wants to do her task fast to make it easier for Jiho. No matter how you look at it, it's a bizarre strat. Dano High's upping the pressure while a support hero was diving. Just when you thought it was easy to go help your teammate, a wild aggressive healer interrupts with a head smash. Jiho was basically going 1 versus 2, while his team went 3 versus 2. This was a bizarre formation that's only possible because of Jiho's skills. Mishin's captain found it hard to understand how he couldn't land a single shot on such a tiny hero. When he somehow finds a good opening to exploit, Spiro moves as if he has speed hacks to dish out a perfect counter. While the tank captain was dazed, the DPS took the burden of trying to contain Spiro. That was even simpler for Jiho to counterattack. Jiho is lucky that Machino and Prelin are both playing aggressively. Just like Chan Heon predicted, this will be a quick match. The enemy tank recovered and immediately went for another aggressive stomp. Spiro was like an untouchable blur with every dodge. And he never takes his foot off the gas either. Once your attack was dodged, expect a very painful revenge. Mishin High's captain has never seen counter used this monstrously. Jiho predicts the enemy's movement and winds up his counter before the enemy's skill takes effect. But even after that, Mishin's teamwork and attack timings are still perfectly in sync. Thanks to that, the gaming god is all warmed up. He hasn't even taken a single point of damage, and the enemy tank and DPS are already down to the critical zone. It was a masterclass of counters and timings. At this rate, he'll be able to finish this with the counter damage alone. Jiho is the most infuriating player to play against. It's like you're hitting air. Jiho was taking advantage of Machino and Prelin's different attack speeds. It's a ridiculous notion. To test it out, the captain asked the DPS to stay close. They will try a coordinated attack on 3. Charging their offense took just a few moments, but it was easily dodged by Spiro's verticality. Mishin captain just confirmed that this monster really was using the attack speed differential right to the fraction of a second. When they attack separately, it gives Jiho free initiative to counter. Before they realized it, the DPS and tank already had their backs against a literal wall. They shared the same thought at that moment. They can't win against this person. Not in this lifetime. On the other aisle of the gaming cafe, Jiho was scratching his head in confusion. Chan Heon said that he should impose a sense of fear on the enemy, but he didn't know how to do that. All he knows is that people panic when he counters like a demon, and when pushed to the brink, enemies lose their composure naturally. That, in turn, makes his timing a lot easier. Even after traumatizing these poor high school kids with a humiliating finish, Jiho still wasn't sure if this was enough to deliver a shock. For now, it should be fine to go help the other 3 to wrap up the round. But before flying over, the victory screen had already appeared. Their close-out speed is a testament to everyone's improvement. At this point, the other three are just competing against Jiho's fast clear. Chaewon just falls deeper and deeper for Jiho's gaming riz. Captain Ari praised everyone's performance as the team looked to be in great shape. Eugene is enjoying smashing heads like a true healer as always. Even stickler Chan Haeon was pleased with everyone's performance. He looked at the timer, and it was stopped at 2 minutes and 11 seconds. That's the time it took for Dano Hai to absolutely destroy Mishin Hai's willpower.
You're a victim.
The first round against Mishin Hai went too fast, and now the second round is starting with Jiho using Clayton. Two of Mishin Hai's players were completely obliterated by the end of those 2 minutes. In round 2, it was Donghan Song's turn to taste the fear. Clayton's electrifying attacks were nearly impossible to deal with. Dano Hai's positional advantage makes it hard for the enemy to heal. The enemies have been scattered at long ranges. The healer was literally useless as the front lines got swiftly whittled down. The enemy healer was making a mad dash just to get into range. But Dano Hai's captain will not let that happen. She was camping and waiting for the reinforcement to come, and the trap succeeded. Ari wasn't supposed to be even remotely near this spot, but she only had to worry about Chaewon, and Jiho always does fine without heals, so it's possible for her to roam. Disrupting the opponent's heal timing would be enough to end this game much faster. Jiho glanced behind him as the enemies were not making the optimal move. Just as he thought, Captain Ari is being an absolute menace as an attacking healer. After clobbering the enemy healer, it's about time to regroup and clean up. Thanks to Ari's judgment, clearing out the Vanguard one-on-one would be easier. Clayton's superior offensive capability was devastating in Jiho's hands. It was so fast that blocking was out of the question. Now that Jiho had adjusted to the game, he was able to last 2 rounds without motion sickness. Mishin Hai had completely crumbled from that point on. Jiho easily wrapped the second round up in a flashy fashion. Mishin was ripped apart in just 2 minutes and 42 seconds. The outcome of the match was pretty much decided within a total of 5 minutes. Jin Yong ended up subbing in to reduce the strain on Captain Ari's wrist. The first 2 rounds had traumatized Mishin Hai, to the point of banning Spiro and Clayton for round 3. Using Genevieve, Jiho reminded his buddy to pull him in case of danger. Mishin had also subbed in an offensive healer using Dwalet. They'll probably play pure defense, so it's a perfect opportunity for Jin Yong to shine. They just need to be careful not to get caught up in the enemy's tempo, and Dano Hai should sweep. Jiho will be jumping in to bait one-on-ones. Just as expected, Mishin is turtling out and sticking together closely. That Genevieve then went ahead and ruined that pure defense with a free hit. That was the signal for the others to go ham with no respect for the opponent's formation. It looks like Jin Yang will be locked onto a 1 versus 1 against the other tank. Baron has a higher speed and acceleration than his Axa, but he has the greater range, so the first hit should be guaranteed. He can't concede his only advantage, so Axa jumped out to dodge the charge. This is the perfect time to use the combo that Jiho taught Jin Yang. The first step is getting the first strike in the initial exchange. The Silver Gamer did just that, and he felt like a whole new world opened in front of him. This was how his main hero should be played. This was how you dominate. The Baron had got up and tried to retaliate, but Jin Yong's already winding up the next attack. For a moment, the two stood on equal footing without damaging one another. But everything's going according to the Silver Gamer's plan. Jiho taught him that the point when the combo ends is the most dangerous moment in the attack. The enemy's hero is faster, so it's logical that he'll take a hit. But if you follow Jiho's lessons, then it would be a very different story. Jin Yang used karate to yank the Baron out of position at the perfect moment. Axa grabbed the hunk of metal in a chokehold. Jiho told Jin Yang to use this skill in case he gets trapped in a pinch, but he also said that they should try out what they've practiced. This is the perfect time for the kid to show everyone what he's made of. Jin Yang locked onto the target with his menacing ultra-special Yurat Double X combo. It blasted off the Baronet and dealt an absurd amount of damage. The broadcast commentator took note of the first-year player Jin Yang Zhang for the masterful play. He absolutely demolished Mishin Hai's main tank Donghan Song. The other commentator had already mentioned time and time again that Dano Hai is the dark horse of this tourney. Of course, it was Guref. He was outrightly saying that Dano Hai would win it all. He was even actively rooting for his personal favorite player, Jiho Seong. The young man was already done with the rest of the Mishin Hai players, and he's telling the other teammates to respect Jin Yang's dignity as a tank player. Jiho was specifically trying to give confidence to all his teammates. Maintaining high spirits for the next match is a big brain move. Guref added that Uri Hun may be the captain, but the in-game leader is undoubtedly Jiho Seong. In the first 2 rounds of the match, Jiho netted 5 kills and 1 assist. If this is a war, Mishin Hai had already been reduced to stragglers and dead bodies. It didn't take Jin Yang too long to end the round and the match in a convincing fashion. He's the best silver-ranked gamer ever. The bottom seed of Group H defeats a top 16 team with an overwhelming show of force. It's somewhat of a no-brainer to ask who the MVP of today's match should be. There's no doubt that the man with the golden eyes, Giraffe's favorite pick, player Jiho Seong, will get MVP. He had a total of 6 kills and 3 assists, a kill participation of a whopping 75%. Giraffe shouted that everyone who watched today's broadcast has just witnessed the birth of a new star. Back in the cafe, Chan Haeon was pleased with Jiho's calls for the last round. He's glad that they have this monster on the team. Let's turn our attention to another match happening after Dano Hai's sweep. In this matchup, players Yeong-gu and Min-suk are going neck and neck with high intensity. Gil Hai's ace looks like he's under a lot of pressure while being backed into a corner. Meanwhile, Jiangsu Hai's Taeyong Shin is oozing confidence. And it doesn't take too long for the source of his confidence to be revealed. A sneak attack that makes Gil Hai's ace struggle even more is blasted off. On top of that, Jiangsu Hai's entire team arrives to exert even more pressure. They make short work of a 3-on-3 and are now cleaning up for the victory lap. Yeong-gu has been eliminated, and the game is over. Jiangsu Hai shows their amazing potential with a 3-1 ending against Gil Hai. It's a close match that ran the distance, but after Jiangsu Hai gets made their picks, it eventually leads to this outcome. But if you ask Giraffe, the outcome was easily predictable. Jiangsu Hai's team fights are just too good. Their high level of play is almost impossible to witness in a high school match. Together with Dano Hai's previous showing, Group H is turning out to be quite a banger. Next week is a match between the team with the shocking debut, Dano Hai, and the team that just narrowly lost against Jiangsu, the gritty Gil Hai. In Gil Hai's club room, they have to watch the painful replays of the match repeatedly. Their loss isn't what's infuriating in the broadcast. It just sucks to hear Giraffe go on and on about Dano Hai. If you didn't know what was going on, some would think that Dano bribed Giraffe. But the win speaks for itself. Mishin Hai is no pushover by any means. Even so, Gil Hai's senior players have some sort of grudge against Chaewon, so it hurts more. Yeong-gu interjected that Dano might be a new team, but they got one guy who's cracked out of his mind. Whatever they do from now on, they shouldn't underestimate Dano Hai. Back in the Dano Hai campus, Captain Ari interrupted practice time for an announcement. She has a tab open on the computer that she wants to show everyone. To everyone's surprise, it's an article titled Dano Hai's Spearow is a glimpse into the future of Sword Rush. It's an article about their sweep, a confidence boost before starting practice again. Of course, everyone loves seeing some attention go to them. It might only mention Jiho when it comes to the gameplay, but all of them contribute to the win. Everyone's tougher than before, especially Jin Yang. Chaewon practiced to the point of almost snapping her wrist, but she continued to go hard. But when Captain Ari announced that the next match was against Gil Hai, she froze. The captain thought it would be a morale boost, but the vibes went down instead. Jiho and Jin Yang are hyped though. Jin Yang even asserts that he'll get MVP next game. And that's because he's no longer a silver rank scrub. He grinded so hard that the madman reached platinum rank. Chang Haeon entered the club, puzzled by the mood inside. He complained that the team was not watching and studying replays, but Ari and the team had already done that multiple times today. Chang Haeon's just nagging. He thought that Gil Hai would be easy to analyze, but it took him longer than expected. Jin Yang felt bitter that the team wasn't acknowledging his rank grind. Of course, Jiho was there to make fun of his buddy while the other first years are in their own world. In the next 5 minutes, the coach needs everyone's concentration as he gives the strategy rundown. Objectively speaking, there's not much difference between Gil Hai and the Mishin Hai that they defeated. In that case, Ari thinks that they can just do the same thing and sweep the same way. But Chan Haeon explained that the two teams are similar in skill but different in strategy. Gil has Yeong-gu, a new DPS player who would have been easily accepted in a top-tier school's program with his skills alone. This is the biggest difference between the upcoming opponent and the previous one. Yeong-gu was a one-sword player, and he was the one who saw Jiho's notebook. Bro got the notebook buff. Chan Haeon met him, and the guy wasn't stupid. That Yeong-gu had probably connected the dots that Jiho is the rank 1 Spearow of one sword. Simply put, they won't be able to play Spearow in the next match, and the psychological shock playbook won't be effective in the first round. Jiho's motion sickness is better than before, but without the quick wins, he might overexert himself again. It's too risky. On top of that, there's also Captain Ari's wrist problem. If Gilhai extends the match to Game 5, there's no knowing what will happen. The better player or the better team doesn't always win. On top of that, Spiro isn't the only hero they'll be missing in the matchup. Chaewon herself won't be playing either, as everyone knows she had a problem with Gilhai, and the fact that she hasn't shared it with everyone is indicative that it's still bothering her. They cannot add another variable that can play to the opponent's advantage. Also, Jin Young had improved significantly to the point of fitting in as a trusted starter. As he was gloating about being the secret weapon and all, Jiho interjected for a second. He wants to try and end the match in no time using a fake strategy. That certainly earned him a lot of question marks in the room. The next day, Jiho gives Giraffe's audience the moment they've been waiting for. The one and only, the incredible, Spiros Blakey. His opponent is a ranker from outside the Korean server playing on a foreign IP address. The question is whether the fearless challenger will be able to put a dent in Spiro's invincible winning streak. The duel starts with a foreign player using Greki getting outplayed with a dodge. Surprisingly, Jiho's counterattack is efficiently avoided as well. While playing the show match, Jiho's mind is distracted by the Gilhai strategy. They're about to face an opponent that knows his playstyle, so the surprise factor advantage doesn't exist. Instead of trying to use psychological shock, they should be using speed to their advantage. Not to mention, the upcoming tourney matchup is kinda personal. As Jiho holds a massive advantage over his one-on-one opponent, he deals with it easily. The foreign player won't go down without doing whatever it takes though. Jiho had already anticipated and readied an appropriate answer for this sneak attack. First, a dodge to get out of blade range, then using the deadly lasso of fire to dish out the killing move. It's yet another easy dub for the gaming god at Giraffe's stream. Giraffe has genuinely turned into Jiho's #1 fan at this point. As his viewer count goes up, so does his admiration for the young man. Apparently, the challenger is famous overseas. They've reached a record number of viewers and donations. He had to gush over how on fire Jiho was at the school tournament as well. It looks like Down High will undoubtedly explode in popularity. Speaking of, Giraffe wanted to collab with a new girl, Chaewon Lee. He knows how to spot natural entertainers. The guy might be shady at times, but he knows his stuff when it comes to entertaining an audience. Jiho didn't see the harm in the collab, so he agreed to ask Chaewon. Also, Giraffe just happened to hear something while he was casting the tournament. Pro teams are pushing for their trainees, the rising stars, to go hard on the tournament. There's this one player named Jae-il-eun who's rumored to be a gaming genius joining a Tier 1 team. Winning the whole tourney might be harder than ever. Jiho thanked Giraffe for his concern, but Dano High is not planning on losing so easily. Back in the gaming cafe, everyone's been practicing diligently. Ari reckons that Jiho would be staying up all night formulating his strat. Chan Haeon has also been thinking about the upcoming match non-stop. Coach must be considering what Jiho told them the other day. Coach wanted to attack Gilhai's teamwork, but Jiho wanted to implement an unorthodox fake strategy. Chan Haeon would gladly listen if it's coming from Jiho. Young-gu is the only player who knows Jiho. No matter what, he will respond differently than the rest of his team. If they ban Spiro, that means they listen to the freshman. And they will be careful. It's likely that they'll play defensively at that point. If Dano High tries another aggressive formation, Gilhai will just make a tighter defensive one. Right then, they can surround the whole team on all sides. After that, they could lure one of them out. By positioning Dano healers further away, they can bait an unfortunate soul. Yujin didn't like the sound of playing the role of bait, but Chan Haeon gets the gist of the plan. Young-gu won't be easily baited, but the rest would gladly attempt to break out for a possible one-on-one fight. No matter how tight Gilhai makes their formation, Jiho's throbbing strat can still ram into the tight gaps. The other first years don't really get the whole picture, but Coach does. Now that they have Jiho's plan to consider, Ari wanted to hear Chan Haeon's strategy too. Coach paused for a second and didn't share his thoughts at the end of the day. Right now, Chan Haeon's thinking about it so much, and that only means that the outcome's already decided. Coach Chan Haeon conceded that Jiho's right, and there was no point in thinking about this further. Ari picked on her friend for always flaunting his strategies only to give way to Jiho. Chan Haeon was considering the implications of the relatively new pick and ban system, as most players only main one hero. They are like Gilhai in that regard. At the end of the day, it comes down to figuring out the opponent's formation, and Gilhai will undoubtedly pick a defensive one. That means Jiho's strategy is the most efficient as it takes the guesswork out of the equation. This was Chang Haeon's first-hand experience with regard to Jiho not just being a good player. He texted the group chat about what strategy they would be implementing for the upcoming match. He informed everyone that they would be practicing Jiho's strat starting tomorrow. Ari smiled a little as Chang Haeon was still just like he was when they were just kids. For now, drilling team play is on top of the list. Kovac had also given Captain Ari the contact info of some sort of special tutor. As the tutor was already waiting, Chang Haeon bid his farewell and wished Ari good luck. But before that, Ari was itching to know what was up with Chaewon as it seemed very serious. Chang Haeon's the only one who knows about it in the team. He insisted that it was not for him to share, so Ari should just ask Chaewon herself. But she already tried, and Blondie directed Ari to coach. Back then, the guild players liked Chaewon, until an upperclassman who already had a girlfriend tried to get with her but was rejected. Apparently, the girlfriend found out and spread weird rumors about Chaewon and bullied her. Captain Ari looked like she wanted to kill a bitch after hearing that. Chang Haeon insisted that it was not a big deal though. It's not a big deal because he'll make sure that the team pays Gil High back for what they did.
I don't want peace. I want problems, always!
Chaewon has been thinking non-stop about how she can help the team. They say that if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear 100 battles. So, it'll be perfect if she shares information about the Gil High players. Chaewon will be going over the people who were on the roster when she was there. First is the third-year captain Jinyu Jeon. His role is the main healer of the team. The guy tends to play near the front instead of healing from afar. His main pick is Dwalet, and just like Chang Haeon's scouting report, the cap is basically a Dwalet one-trick. Chaewon wasn't sure if the captain had expanded his hero pool, but banning his main should be effective. He likes playing near the front, but he's not an offensive healer at all. He sticks close to teammates and pokes around here and there. The next on their roster is someone that Chaewon hates. The main DPS player, the third-year Chong-gu Kang. Chaewon doesn't even want to talk about this asshole, but the guy is the key player on that team. He was so talented that even other schools tried to scout him. The big drawback was his toxic personality. Finally, an accurate gamer representation. He's also the reason why Chaewon had such a tough time at Gil. His main pick is Saigon, but he can play whichever hero is the strongest in the meta. He's the type of player that always tries to get a leading advantage at any given moment. If they ban Saigon, that guy will just draw something up from his deep hero pool. Chaewon thinks that target banning his picks would not be worth it. Still, Saigon would be up there on the ban list as the guy is good at taking advantage of high mobility heroes. Still, taking him on 1 versus 1 shouldn't be a problem. Chaewon hates to admit it, but the third years have great teamwork after playing together for years. They are pretty good individually, but their duo synergy is the real deal. Their problem is that they're the only two with decent teamwork. They flat out refuse to accommodate other team members. Chaewon entered the team with other freshmen, and there were no second years in sight after being driven away by the duo's toxicity. She had grown frustrated at the fact that team play was impossible in that school. If they're going with Jiho's strategy, Chaewon thinks that Jin Yang and Eugene should stick together as the anchor. Eugene wanted to smash heads after all. Next on the roster is the main tank, Seong back. He's a must-is one trick. His range isn't that great. Chaewon doesn't have much to say, he's just a normal tank player. Jin Yang protested that everyone else had a detailed profile, yet the one he'd be facing had no substantial info at all. Chaewon doesn't care about guys who suck at gaming in the first place. There's also that last guy who's in the same vein. Sia Moon Lee is a first-year all-rounder kind of a player. He was decent at everything apart from support. His main pick was the underwhelming Fluby. It's pointless to ban his picks because he's just too flexible. Sia Moon used to be a reserve player, so it's uncertain whether he'll play. Jiho thinks that this info is more than enough to go on. Chang Haeon came into the room after listening behind the door. He thinks that player analysis is important to their overall strategy, but they need to start grinding practice as soon as possible. As for Yuan-gu, Chang Haeon will take the mic for a second. Even the top-tier Jiangsu Hai wanted the kid as their main DPS player. His main pick is Prelin, a hero that best suits his playstyle. He plays fluidly, and his decision-making is razor-sharp. On top of being super meticulous, he's a nightmare to deal with. The experienced third-year duo who are good at baiting has an amazing synergy with Yuan-gu's accurate explosiveness. Jiangsu Hai focused on this detail in their winning strategy. All their plans focused down on Yuan-gu. Jiangsu Hai would won with just pure skill though. Also, Given that Chan Haeon had actually met the guy, he can certainly say that Yudong has great decision-making skills. He fetched Jiho's notebook from the guy after all. Coach looked at the notes to check, and all he could say was Jiho should work on his awful handwriting. He's been working on his handwriting real hard, but it still looks self-encrypted. They need to make sure that this notebook never gets exposed again. Jiho knew the weight of these pages, so she genuinely assured Coach Chan Haeon that he'll be careful. Back to Yuvang-gu, his username for one sword used to be 950. The numbers ring a bell to Jiho, but he's not sure if it was 950 that he remembers. Chan Haeon thinks that the kid might be good, but not good enough to be remembered. That's a win. Banning Prelin for the first 2 rounds sounds like a reasonable move. To summarize, the bans would be Prelin, Dwalit, Saigon, and either Mustis or Fluby. They can use Chaewon's inside information and Gil Hai's recent picks for a prediction. The third-year duo will pick Konamos for its low ban rate and Porov for Dwalit's synergy. There's also a high chance that Yudong will pick a Gouter for its similar playstyle to his main. The 2 first years will likely pick Bruja for healing or Ballatail for tanking. This would be the best formation that has the highest pick rates. Dano High will tailor their training against these team comps. Jin Young did not think that the enemy would actually go for those obvious picks. Usually, this kind of stuff rarely comes true. But today, on the day of the second tournament match, Jin Young couldn't believe his eyes. Coach Chan Haeon's draft prediction was spot on. He felt a chill run through his spine seeing the enemy team that they'd practiced against so heavily in the actual match. He thinks that Chan Haeon must have sold his soul to the devil or become this clever or something. Coach is just built different. The school tournament's second match of Group A, Dano High versus Gil High. It's not just a match for points, it's a match for revenge for what they did to Chaewon. That's how the chilling match started. The school tournament races onwards. The hidden powerhouse, Gil High, will go up against the dark horse, Dano High. The stream's viewership just had a massive jump compared to last time. Yuref would gladly go over the rules. The first, second, and fifth sets are conventional elimination modes with picks and bans, but the third and fourth sets have been changed. A random mode between elimination, escort, control, assault, and deathmatch will be randomly selected. Of course, it's also possible to roll elimination moves in every round. As for the player to watch out for, it's definitely player Jiho Seong. Yuref cannot help but fanboy loudly, putting all this hope on Jiho. On Gil Hai's side, on the other hand, Young-gu was amassing quite a bit of attention. Yuref wasn't as enthusiastic to talk about that kid though, he thinks Vion's just decent. The third-year dynamic duo's calm playstyle is also to watch out for. Based on the previous matches, it's reasonable to think that Jiho will be diving again. Gil Hai can capitalize on this with enough preparation. Instead of Chaewon Lee, aka the blonde DPS, freshman Jin Yang Jang will be a starter. On Gil Hai's side, Si Youngjin Lee will also come off the bench. Each team has quite a subpar sub-roster, so there are clearly some interesting schemes at play. Finally, let's start with the picks and bans. Gil Hai was banned from picking Prelin, Dwalit, Saigon, and Polubia. Simply put, their main heroes have been locked away. They decided to pick heroes with similar playstyles instead, highlighting their tendency to minimize damage. For Dano High's side, Spiro, Luminance, Link, and Axa have been banned. It will come as a bit of a disappointment that the viewers will not see Spiro in action, but Dano High has picked S-class heroes with an aggressive comp. Just from the picks, they're already showing force, especially Jiho Seong with the curveball Blakey pick. Jin Yang also picked Rabuch, a DPS pretending to be a tank. The team's starting formation has been set. It's about time to get into the match. Dano High naturally went for the forward charge. They've already covered all the possibilities. As they go with a 4-man push, Gil High was retreating as planned. Their 2 vanguards are forming a tight defensive maneuver. GL regrets not having Spiro for the superior speed, but their team comp is great when it comes to overall mobility. As they got into the sweet spot, it was time to get on with the fake strategy. They'll keep up the speed, but the window of opportunity is narrow, and Yujin just wants to smash heads. They were performing a quick crisscross swap. This type of maneuver was out of Yuang-gu's expectations. Dano High is advancing in a weird way. The level of confidence is through the roof, and Gil players felt a little disrespected. One of them felt self-assured after seeing the healers distancing behind. If they're going by the book, Dano High should be diving in soon. It indeed looked like a full push with Jiho's Blakey as a spearhead. But no, they are stopping just before entering Gil High's effective range. The veterans did not expect that at all. To make matters more confusing, the damage dealers just made a complete stop. This is a type of strategy that catches enemies off guard. Young-Woo saw it for what it was, a blatant challenge. This match will drag on, and caster Giraf will explain why. He'll box themselves in with a pure defensive huddle. It allows them to block a lot of angles with numbers, but they're also giving Dano Hai the timing control. Dano Hai chose to avoid the risk of a dive and opted for a passive approach instead, passing the ball on Gil Hai's court. They placed their healers as tasty bait for isolated duels. The thing is, going after the healers would quickly subject Gil Hai to the Jiho and Jin Yang combo. Another possibility is an isolated DPS to DPS and healers to healers format. Another possibility is a vertical 2 versus 1 healer. If that happens, Jiho and Jin Yang will be free to take their pick of which fights to reinforce for a more favorable fight. It's an incredibly surprising high-level strat by Dano Hai. If Gil Hai makes a rash decision, they will fall victim one way or another. It looks like they are going for the most surface-level plat to engage Dano Hai's supposed weak healers. The enemy tank will try to go up against Jiho in hopes of buying some much-needed time. This freshman really thinks that he can hold the game in God. Everything's going according to Jiho's plan. The first exchange slashed the enemy tank's HP by 1/4. Blakey's damage output was just too high. But if he was using Spiro, Jiho could have hit so many more times. Even so, it looks like the slaughter will end faster than expected. This flashy but quick end is why the young man finds playing DPS so boring. In just one cycle, he already has his ultimate. Now that the tank has been cleared, he might as well go all the way with an ult. Jin Yang will also work off his buddy's timing. His Raobuch kicked out the healer mercilessly. Gil Hai went into the match trying to play for time, yet they're already down by 1. Young-Woo knew that there was no comeback potential at this point. With Gil Hai's 3 members grouped up, Jiho's job will be easier. His ult lets him summon and control 3 separate clones, 3 clones for the remaining 3 stooges. It's a wrap. At this level, there are very few people that can perfectly control a 3-clone Blakey to its highest potential. Mugan hasn't even died, and he's already removing his headset to save his mental. GG go next, my guy. He was trembling and having one-sword flashbacks. Jiho admits that Blakey is also fun to play when it comes to using 3 clones. His mechanical skills shine above everyone else with heroes as intensive as this one. But the real reason why he chose Blakey, even though he finds it boring, is because he wanted to show Gil Hai what's up. That no matter how much they try, no one is allowed to bully his team. The young man casually dropped 3 heroes with pure inhuman mechanics. Gil Hai was slowly crushed in a one-man show, with every hit driving the humiliation deeper. Jiho wanted to show everyone that this is how you take revenge.
Someone cooked here.
It is an amazing win for the team, and Chaewon loves Jiho's gaming riz as always. The round takes 5 minutes, but the actual battle is only 2 minutes. Jiho goes pretty hard, so his motion sickness needs to be monitored while Ari's wrist also needs to go easy. But it looks like they're both pretty good to go for the next game. They deliver a shock within an acceptable time frame. It goes just as Jiho anticipates. The strat is good, but the pick and ban align perfectly. They can thank Chaewon's inside info for that. Chalin Haeon notices that there is something up on the other team. Young-Woo immediately goes AFK halfway through the game. That dude takes off his headset as soon as Jiho ults. Dano Hai just has to wait and see what's up next round. For this match, Spiro and Blakey are banned as they anticipated, but there's quite a bit of a curveball on the other team. It looks like this will be the first time that they'll face an enemy support hero since their match against Yeonju Hai. Young-Woo steps away from the DPS role to solely focus on locking up Jiho. He thinks that with the ace out of the picture, they'll stand a chance. As soon as the time starts, Young's hero links up with the tank. The astronaut-looking character is flung toward Jiho at incredible speeds. It's up to Jiho's Clayton how he would respond. Young-Woo wants to crush the monster this round. He wants Jiho to have a taste of what it feels like to not be able to do a single thing. He plans to go 1 versus 1 while the rest of the team plays a different game. The Madman picks a hard counter in the form of Halevity for Jiho. All of its skills are crowd control to lock him up and buy time. Jiho would have been worried before, but his buddy, Jin Yang, is a different monster now. He's confident his team won't lose. Jin Yang will be the key in this round. He has to take charge while Jiho takes care of Halevity. Gil Hai is basically trying to use Dano Hai's go-to strat. They're probably thinking that the rest of the team is easy snacks apart from Jiho. But thanks to that, Jin Yang can finally have the spotlight. His Raobuch is itching for its well-deserved debut. This is the all-new Jin Young 2.0, Baby. Eugene has dibs on one of the enemy's heads, and Ari will take the other one. The clash finally starts, and Jin Young is facing the main DPS. The guy is rushing him without respect at all. The enemy is also using the OP hero, Konamos, but Jin Young will just follow what Jiho taught him. Gilhai is going all out to try to finish as quickly as possible. The Konamos is mindlessly attacking, leaving tons of openings. Jin Young has grasped the concept of quick counters pretty well. His first attack shaves off a lot of HP. Even he is shocked by the damage he can do. The silver, recently Platinum Warlord goes and exploits every opening he finds. He is smurfing on the poor enemy. He has never felt this sensation in a real match. Since he holds the advantage, he can pile on more pressure with his skill. But that would be what the old greedy Jin Young would do. He almost gets carried away when Jiho warns him that he must be mindful of the enemy's skill cooldowns too. When you know that, it's easy to switch to defense. That also gives him the space to smash through one more time. The third-year DPS is dumbfounded by this one-sided beatdown. He thought he was going up against a noob coming off the bench. Jin Young was just supposed to be Jiho's one-trick sidekick. But no, the Platinum Warlord has inherited his best friend's vision. He's no longer a garbage low-tier tank. He can single-handedly take down a high-ranked opponent by himself. What people said about Jin Young was severely misleading. The noob is gone, and a monster has been molded by the gaming god. In the second round, Jin Young kills the Konamos in a one-on-one first blood. The elation he feels is amazing. This is the real deal. This is what it feels like to wreck your opponent with pure skill, and Jiho has been savoring this sensation by himself all the time. But he needs to calm down. He's got to go and brag about this to Jiho first. But shortly after his kill, the Halevity also falls. It's impossible to believe that a pure counter was dealt with just like that. Jiho's Clayton has been known to curve stomp everyone, and he's not done yet. He's coming to cover for Ari's battle fast. Jin Young underestimated his best friend. Halevity was mercilessly trashed like it was nothing. Yunonhu was completely broken. Back in the day, the rumors say that Spiro was old, and he must have quit gaming. He refuses to believe that the GOAT was just a middle schooler a few months ago. Now, Sword Rush will be ruined too. The gaming god that single-handedly molded a game around him, Spiro, has returned.
You're goddamn right.
Eugene does his job and kills the other opponent like a true healer should. He is so savage and relentless that he grinds down a tank. Ari is cut from the same cloth. She insists on killing the Porog by herself. She's used to playing as a main DPS after all. Coach Chang, Heian isn't pleased with all the one-on-ones though. They could have saved so much time. He might have no honor, but he has a point. This round is a bit of a struggle with all the chaos, and it drags on for too long. Jin Young and Eugene look good, but the two aces might need a break. They both can go further, but Jiho can sit out the next random game mode. Chaewon wants to see her crush play more though. She genuinely wants to see more masterclass gameplay, but the Gilhai asshole sees her being her usual cute self. The Iya feels bitter that they just got stomped on and insulted Chaewon. She hears it, and her mood takes a turn for the worse.
Me personally, I wouldn't take this level of disrespect.
Everyone in Dano High hears the guy's foul mouth. Jiho calls out to the angry Captain Ari to sub out and put Chaewon in. This is the first time we see Jiho's death stare in action. Ari gives way with a reminder to not push too hard. She goes to Chaewon's side to remind her that guild players are losers who jump at the first sign of weakness. It's nice that the Dano girls stick together strong. Chang Heian looks like he's about to go and take the fight out of the game though. He'll go outside to take care of something, and Ari will be in charge for the third round. Chaewon is still feeling a bit off after subbing in. Jiho truly wants to help his teammate through this mess. Yuref is back on the caster seat to hype up the audience after Dano High's stellar individual performance. But it's about time to take a complete change of direction for the third round. The next game will favor Gilhai's flex style. Control game mode is in play. The teams must capture the most objectives within a certain time. There will be a respawn mechanic, so strategies are extremely important. If you didn't get it, you'll understand once we get to the game. Scrubs. Now, let control start. For the team bans, you won't be able to pick Halevity, Prelin, Tualet, and Bolatel. While Dano won't be able to use Spiro, Blakey, Clayton, and Rabuch. They might as well just ban Jiho at this point. Gilhai constructs a team they're comfortable in. Since Jiho was almost exclusively counterbanned, everyone else got their mains with Jiho on Konamos. The The first control point will be at the center. Let the game begin. Jiho wants to address something serious with Jinyang first. He needs his buddy to keep the enemies occupied. Jinyang wouldn't even question his friend, he's become a dependable guy. Jiho will ignore the tank and healer, and you best believe that he'll dive in. He just needs a minute and a half, and Jinyang won't just buy time, he wants to smash heads. The game starts and Jiho informs Eugene that he won't need heals, but Chaewon might need some. She's beginning to doubt herself again. Eugene psyched her up with his principle, survive and get stronger, or just die. Either way, they'll get this dub. Sometimes it's hard to tell if he's being nice or not. The initial start looks standard with Jiho being the spearhead. The enemy tank is on the front as expected. Jinyang doesn't know what his buddy is planning, but he's all in. Link and Axa will take on their role counterparts. Jiho, on the other hand, is waiting for Chaewon to catch up. He assures her that he'll be there to support. She just needs to do whatever she wants. But all the pain she was holding was hindering her gameplay. The enemies are already upon them. Jiho's Kuminamos will take the Agouter. The first clash went pretty much equal. Blondie knows that she has to do her fair share, especially in the one-on-one with the guy who pushed him out of her previous school. Just the sight of this guy's Saigon is enough to bring all the trauma back up. Chaewon's hand froze while holding the mouse. Jiho notices what's happening on her side though. A momentary lapse in control left her open for an uncontested critical strike. Jiho won't let that slide. He just wants to help his teammate overcome her fears, but he might have been too inconsiderate, and he rushed it. Right now, Konamos is trapped between two high DPS heroes. Chaewon can't play the game in her condition. All the while, Jiho is trying so hard. Even on a 2-on-1, Jiho still holds a bit of an advantage. He's taking on Chaewon's burden and slashing it back to the opponent's face. He secures some room to breathe and rushes to Chaewon's side. If she needs a breather, she can join Jinyang and Eugene first. She can only apologize to Jiho in the middle of the match. But the young man knows that this poor girl has done nothing wrong. Jiho's done playing nice with Gil High. Chaewon can take it easy, and he'll take care of the rest. Jinyang scores the first blood again, leaving him open to take the point objective. Kuminamos is dashing to the other side of the map. He's planning on syncing up the timing for something. Chaewon has never felt so pathetic than at this point in time. Eugene has also taken care of his assigned mark. At this moment, Jiho decides that the timing is perfect. They'll take a spot and make a statement in this final round. Every time that enemies respawn until the timer runs out, Gil High won't ever take a single step alive. Spawn camp them hoes. There's a 15-second gap between the respawn timers now. Steigen was the first to revive. He's on his own. He doesn't have his team yet, clueless as to what's about to go down. Jiho's Kunamos was just standing behind him. An easy undefended scythe slash to the back does a lot of damage. It was so fast that you would think you were playing a horror game. While down for the count, Jiho continued to hack and slash his way through Saigon's HP bar. With his insanely high APM, he can space his attacks without letting the enemy breathe. He's somehow playing even better than before. Just when Saigon thought that the torture was over, he got eaten by a literal dog. The actual Saigon player cannot even use his mouse. He's just getting hit inside the game, but Jiho's domination gives off a different feeling. Kunamos looked like an actual Egyptian death god as he decapitated the enemy. One down and another one is about to spawn again. Chico just took a single second to pause and immediately jumped to the spawn site. Next up is the poor boy Yuliang-gu. He already knows that he's facing the real Spiro, so the intimidation factor is sky high. Jiho hasn't changed a bit since one sword. Every tap and every action were made with perfect precision and timing. This was how Jiho played back then. He killed everyone as soon as they spawned. He played this playstyle until people quit the match entirely. In perfectly timed intervals, Konamos amassed 5 kills. Another one spawned and another one fell. 6 kills. With every death, the enemies felt like they were losing their sanity. With every ultimate, Jiho showed that he had that dog in him. Kuminamus, 7 kills. Gil High's defeated body language says it all, 8 kills. The rage quit moments were heard all over the game cafe, 10 kills. With that, Jiho has broken the kill record in the school tournament control mode. Just a casual double-digit solo bomb to flex on the haters. The viewership of the stream was rising at an alarming rate as his kill count ballooned. Guref of all people knows that they are watching something special today. Back in the match, Jiho took 10 straight kills while maintaining half his HP. The respawn timers are about to sync up and everyone will get revived at the same time. It'll be hard to line it up again as Jiho is losing focus while he gets dizzy. And as he anticipated, the Guild 4 needs to go after him with all they have. He needs to wipe them out one more time. This should cap off the match. But even with 4 people, Yulhai hesitates to charge. The third years has broken down, and so did Yunong, but he thinks that they can still fight for objectives. Unfortunately for them, Jinyan and the gang had already taken all the points, and now Dano Hai has grouped up for a final clash. Chaewon was still feeling down that Jiho fought solo for her sake. She felt frustrated after just standing and watching. She let her Jiho have a hard time against a bunch of good-for-nothings, against people that she hates the most, those that suck at gaming as much as they suck at everything else in life. As she conquers her fear and beats down Saigon, Chaewon feels good. Without thinking about all the messed up past, she can seriously kick ass. The whole team was just happy that the lively Chaewon they knew was back and going hard. Dano Hai already have the advantage, so they can just kill the players they hate the most. Chaewon paused for a second. She needed to appreciate how cute Jiho was when he was in the zone, smurfing in a tournament. There are still 10 seconds on the game clock, and the earliest Gil high respawn timer is a whopping 20 seconds later. With 3 points under control, Dano Hai cemented a brutally perfect victory. They absolutely wiped the floor against a school they had beef with. Yulhai was a picture of absolute devastation. A 3-0 sweep, and it was not even close. A lot changed with Dano Hai after this win. Someone without confidence and skill wouldn't have even thought of doing what Jiho did here. He slaughtered the enemy and raised the team's morale in a short period of time. He thinks and plays so calmly despite provocation. Coach Chang Haeon felt like Jiho was an endless mystery. One thing's for certain though, the internet will be going wild tomorrow. Jiho can finally rest. The next day comes, and Jin Yang jokingly complains that his back hurts after carrying the team. He's up in the clouds, thinking that he stole his best friend's sword rush talent. Jiho's still recovering from the severe motion sickness from the 3 straight rounds, but even after that, and despite the 2 screwballs nonsense, Jiho just wants to hurry up and practice. As the trio walks to school, some students recognize Jiho. Some of their schoolmates are psyched to see the new superstar. Jiho himself is confused about this though. Jin Yang was already expecting the fame that comes with being part of a winning team after yesterday. The fans have all sorts of questions about the team, Chaewon, Ari, Jiho, and everything else. He wants to assert to everyone that he has to go and practice, but he remembers something important. Jina Lee told Jiho that it's a pro player's duty to do everything they can for their fans. Even trainee Daman knows to remember that well. So he might as well walk with the scrubs as he needs to get something in the classroom anyway. As soon as the classroom door slides open, the 3 are the talk of the town. Everyone is making a fuss about the recent success of the Dano Hai team. Some fans want to play with them, some want advice to get good, and some even want to get boosted. As the attention is focused on the 3, there's one kid in the classroom who doesn't want to join in. Ji Young Hek Go hesitates to come up to the group that he messed with back then. He can't come up to them with everyone swarming the new celebrities. Jiho notices that though. Liu Jin's sensitive ears are already getting frustrated with all the chatter around him. Even the fans look terrified when Local goes feral. For the first time ever, the 3 are just glad that break is over and practice is starting. They are endlessly hounded and drained by all sorts of questions and requests. That's when 4 Eyes go up to them, seemingly working up the courage to say something. Given their history with this kid, Jin Yang feels that something is up. 4 Eyes knows that the team is busy, so he'll keep it short. He watched their matches online, and there was something that he wanted to say. Jiho assures him that it's fine and to take his time. Jiang Hek Go just wants to apologize. He genuinely wants to express how sorry he's about everything that happened between them. It keeps bothering him, so he decides to look up the match. Jiang Hyuk has always been really into gaming, and he thought that Dano Hai didn't stand a chance. He isn't the only one who thought that. All the viewers in the chat were trashing them at the start. But Jiang Hyuk felt like all the insults affected him as well. At first, he wants to see the team lose for looking down on him. Nobody plays Spiro for all its drawbacks, yet Jiho easily destroys stronger heroes with it. Jiang Hyuk knows that he's the one in the wrong for blaming everyone else when they did nothing wrong. After the match with Mishin Hai, Jiang Hyuk wants to apologize. He struggles to approach them for a time, and then yesterday, he watched Jin Yang, the kid that everyone looked down on, and Chaewon, who've had bad rumors surrounding her, break all the odds with amazing plays. Jiang Hyuk Go transforms into a real supporter. He feels horrible about the notebook incident and for resenting the team when they never did him wrong. Four Eyes also wants to thank them for doing what he should have done himself. He genuinely learns from these guys from afar, and he finally finds peace. So sorry and thank you are what he wants to say. To everyone's surprise, Eugene is the first to approach Jeong-hyuk, telling the kid to forget the past. He's already behind everyone. Practice is about to start, so Eugene will take his leave. Jiho thanks Jeong-hyuk for having the courage to apologize. He offers a handshake as a new start. Jeong-hyuk slowly breaks down in tears right then and there. Who would have thought that gaming could bring some messed up past to a peaceful end? Mr. Yoon watches from afar as his kids act like he thought they would. They're good kids despite all the dumb stuff. In the club room, Jin Young is fixated on the people looking down on him thing. The other two stooges do not fail to slam on him more though. Chaewon has also arrived, and she wants to be part of the fun. Jin Young is back on his bullshit though. This guy never takes anything seriously. Captain Ari always complains about the noise when the first years come in. She's always first to practice after all. But this time, she'll let the kids off the hook as they're coming off a huge win. Shang Haeon's also in, praising the team for their good work. They're guaranteed a spot in the top 16 already. They can celebrate all they want at the moment. Also, since they were guaranteed a spot in the main event, they were asked to do a media interview. That's a big deal that he should have told everyone sooner. Coach didn't bother because he already rejected it. Captain Ari might really kill her friend this time. Chang Haeon insists that they don't have enough practice time as it is, and it would be embarrassing to lose after getting ahead of themselves. There's not much time. They have to discuss the upcoming match with the formidable Jang Soo-hai. Some might think that this match doesn't matter as they're already guaranteed to advance to the next stage. But this one is a key game to win. They need this win to get seeded with Seong High, Group Key's second place. They need this to avoid G and High early on. Then have Siwon Kim, the player who's receiving the most spotlight in Group G. Everyone should have heard Siwon Kim one way or the other. He's a trainee of Team Sparkles in the Pro League. He was also nicknamed Erratic for a good reason. He has an unpredictably chaotic playstyle. He's also the youngest person to ever debut as a pro reserve.
Who?
In simple terms, Siwon Kim is the Jiho Seong of G and High. One might say that Sparkles is the lowest ranked pro team and Daniel High has already won against the S91 trainees. But they just faced regular S91 trainees while Sparkles pro reserves have reached third in the Tier 2 league. If Jin Wah Huang wasn't called up to the main team, they might have won it all. So, they have to beat Jiangsu to avoid Jian. Chang Haeon himself wasn't sure what would happen, but there's no reason to make the matchup harder than necessary. The upcoming Jiangsu match won't be easy either, or they will open up the path for a revenge match with Seongshin High. Recalling the deadpan captain of Seongshin, Jin Yang, and Eugene wanted nothing more than a rematch. On top of that, it seems like Jiangsu High's secret weapon has returned. They have one more training to worry about. They have a total of 3 trainees, and one of them solo carried the team to the quarterfinals on his own. They were rumored to step out of the school tournament, but they've gone full force last minute. Ari wasn't the type to know about all this inside information, so it's quite jarring. But she only stays quiet because Chang Haeon's already a big enough nerd for the team. Other than that, Captain Ari knows her stuff too. The individual skills of the trainees would be a pain to deal with, but what they should be wary of is the enemy's experience. Their key players are second and third years with immaculate teamwork. They are veterans of team play and they have the accolades to show for it. Despite all the serious info dumps, Chaewon would not fail to flirt with Jiho. Coach will get straight to the point with his prediction. The upcoming match will be decided in the 5th round. The reason is simple. Jiho and Ari need to rest. Their influence on the match is just too great. Jiho had 16 kills against Gil High, which translates to roughly 67% of their overall kills. He also got 50% of the kills against Mishin High. As for Ari, she might have been benched for 3 rounds, but she's leading in assists against Mishin. Captain Ari was the assist and healing leader. In other words, missing Jiho would put their damage output in a nosedive. Missing Ari would leave a huge gap in defense. Ultimately, sweeping Jiangsu High would be extremely difficult. It'll be taxing on everyone. They need to play it safe and certain and have Jiho and Ari take turns on the bench depending on the situation. As the team's discussing, a familiar confident voice barged in. The superstar Jean Ali just congratulated them for reaching the top 16. It looks like everyone's having a serious discussion though. Jiho is familiar with the star. Chaewon is jealous. Eugene is unusually polite, and Ari is perpetually starstruck. Gina has been worrying about her Jiho's motion sickness. It's never been a problem for him, but this problem's getting worse only in Sword Rush. Gina asserted that this issue would be overcome soon enough though. She also wanted to check on Ari's wrist problem. The captain was just happy that her idol remembered her name. On top of that, Gina wanted to see her play in action. The current best DPS in the world will be watching Ari play, and she's nervous as hell. Her grip method has improved, and it'll only get better once she lowers the mouse sensitivity while getting her shoulder involved. Gina wanted Ori to use the pro gamer Knack, who plays like an octopus. As an example, he makes wide arcs using his shoulder. It might be difficult to understand initially, but it should lower the strain on Ari's wrist. The captain was just thankful that her idol was giving her some easily digestible advice. Gina Lee was extremely kind and patient too. But now, she wants to spend some quality time with her Jiho. Chaewon did not like the sound of that quality time at all. Gina wanted to have some alone time, but it might be better if everyone's here. Everyone should have had a one-on-one against Jiho, and Gina wanted to know if they noticed something special. Aside from the fact that he's a murderous savage, Jiho will also make you feel cornered. And that's exactly why he suffers motion sickness. Jiho will always back his opponent against a wall. He can do that with his excellent map awareness and utilization of terrain. He can do that by flicking his screen all over the place. He was also using this method in one sword, but he didn't have any problems. But back then, his senses have been saved by the lesser visual burden of the lag. So now that he's playing without lag, the burden on his vision has become much bigger. Gina thinks that this can be the only explanation for Jiho's condition. The question now is why he doesn't get it every time. Gina reckons that it's because he's not being challenged during practice or in real matches. Against tougher opponents, Jiho pans a lot more. Playing seriously skyrockets his APM and screen movement to the limit. That's the diagnosis of the current #1 player. She also has a treatment for said problem. With her sultry voice, Gina whispered that Jiho just had to get used to hardcore practice.
It should have been me, not him!
Practice against players who pose a real challenge. Chaewon blushed at the sight of this scene. Gina just revealed Jiho's only way to get better. Train me, mommy. Let's turn our attention to Ji and Hai for a second. They've been watching replays of Jiho's games and praising the performance. Every Spiro tough counter was on point. Siwon Kim is a big proponent that playing support will be the meta. He also wants to jump on that train. But the shot caller of Ji and Hai is still not convinced about the viability of support in the long run. Jiho Seong is the only real support main in the tourney after all. Siwon argued that all that matters is that the kid's good, and once you know the game inside out, you'll realize that playing support will be the next big thing. All the reserve teams in the Tier 2 league are already starting to switch. Siwon, the trainee himself, is saying so. Still, there's a reason why supports have never been workable, and it's not the right time yet. But according to the shot caller, Siwon can switch to support when he starts playing as well as that kid, Jiho Seong. Siwon arrogantly declared that he'd achieve that by starting in the next match. Back in the club room, Gina didn't really have to whisper all that, but she had her reasons. Now she'll go out of her way to find some decent sparring partners to fix Jiho's motion sickness. Jiho could have played with the S91 trainees, but there's a problem with that. Everyone has quit apart from Doman. Jiho was shocked because everyone was quite good. He didn't even know that he was the reason why everyone left. Trainees know how to stand on their own 2 feet, and some simply hit a wall. A lot of people get scared once they see the massive gap. It's just like the previous rankers who quit one sword. It makes sense. But Eugene thinks that those bums were weak. Perhaps only one sword players would know what the hell really happened back then. And if everyone's curious, who better to clarify things other than Jiho's #2? But they must go way back first, the beginning of the first One Sword server. The first day when One Sword was launched, it was a massive hit, but since it was so difficult, only hardcore gamers stuck around. At that time, there was a player called Tyrant who reached rank 1 with overwhelming reflexes alone. Everyone started copying Tyrant's style, and the players who were close to rank 1 dominated the ladder. It was the first exodus of the player base, with many quitting. But also, the players with real skills stuck around. There were also the new players who thought they were decent. In the end, they were all obliterated by Tyrant. Then on one random day in the course of history changed. A player with a never-seen-before stat and skill combo appeared. He showed up out of nowhere and defeated Tyrant. After that, Tyrant challenged this player multiple times. It was a slaughter in every sense of the word. It was a reflexes gap. That was the flashy rise of Spiro. The fantastic debut of none other than Jiho Seong. Defeating Tyrant wasn't the only thing he was famous for. Tyrant's group started accusing Jiho of hacking. They asserted that his hero's movements were unnatural compared to his stats and skills. Jiho didn't back down and agreed to take part in the hack arena. In that treacherous place, he proved beyond doubt that his lag was the only issue. He proved the haters wrong, and they felt shameful for even accusing Jiho of hacking. That day was another turning point in gaming history. More and more people started to accept Jiho's unparalleled talent. His reputation took a complete 180-degree turn after that. Since then, Spiro came up with all kinds of different formations. In his countless battles, not once was he dethroned from being rank 1. Survival mode was just as popular as solo mode. Jiho eventually reached rank 1 in that too. He achieved the impossible and got his signature cape. The Tyrant and most of his alliance quit the game, causing a user base collapse overnight. Spiro shared a guidebook to improve the community's quality of play. He collaborated with the team play rank 1 named No Blank. Jiho did everything he could to save the game. But there was simply no influx of new players, and the game naturally declined. Some people still believe that Spiro ruined the game. But for the real ones, they know that the learning curve of the game itself was just too steep. One of those scrubs was Yuan-gu. A lot of people held resentment against Jiho's talent as they deleted one sword. Among the existing rankers of Sword Rush, plenty of them never even beat Jiho once. This all happened when he was in grade school too. Speaking of the past, Jean Ali remembered something. She knows that player that Jiho's been looking for on Gurath's channel. It's without a doubt Jiho's collaborator No Blank. He wants to know if the guy is transferred over to Sword Rush 2. Gina, of all people, understands that curiosity. Jin Yang interjected with the fear that the Pro League might take his best friend away in the middle of the tournament run. But Gina told everyone that the Lee is busy with something, so they can rest assured. Also, Jiho had insisted on finishing the tournament all the way, and S91 will respect that. But Gina will be whisking the genius away as soon as this school tournament ends. She recommended everyone enjoy having Jiho on the team while they can. Lastly, she wants to leave everyone with a bit of advice. Everyone in this room should remind themselves that this game is a team effort. They cannot win it all with strategies that depend on 1 or 2 ace players. That was Jang Soo-hai's downfall last year. The more famous Jiho gets with his flashy plays, the more detailed the counter strats will become. The teams with trainees on their roster will do all kinds of things to tie up Jiho. It looks like everyone already knew that. But of course, Gina is sure that if Jiho comes close to his prime, they'll still manage somehow. According to the rumor, Jang Soo-hai looks a bit different than before. Blink twice and everyone makes the jump, just like Dano High. As for practice suggestions, the team can watch how Jang Soo-hai played last year to learn from their mistakes. They must show everyone that Dano High is more than just Jiho Seong. Now, Jean R really needs to run. She's a busy woman. All of her advice would really help the team. It was probably for Jiho, but one of the best still came out of her way to help them. Ari's first thought was to brag to her uncle. Jiho walked with Gina for a bit. The superstar forgot to tell the young man the most important thing. The real purpose of why she came here today. There's a reason why the leagues unleashed their trainees on the school tournament. Gurath told Jiho that it's just for higher viewership and more cloud exposure. But Gina Lee knows the real reason for the trainee overload. The pro teams are searching for Jiho. Like, comment, and subscribe if you also want a pro gamer Dami Mommy.